Approaches don't get much more scenic than this. We've got a snowy landing at Salt Lake City, flying out of Palm Springs International in Aerosoft's CRJ700 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Let's hop into the pilot seat and get started. If you've followed my channel, we've started up the CRJ700 many times, so today we'll have an abridged startup. But if you want a full cold and dark startup with all the details, I'll put a link here so that you can see it. So we'll start by getting the iPad booted up. We'll go up to the top, make sure everything is set to defaults. Our parking brake is set, we're looking good. We'll toggle to the aircraft page so we can get ready to order our ground services. Head up to the top, turn on the battery master. We'll turn on the electrical DC page. And now we'll verify that we have enough power to start our APU. That looks good. We'll press the Fire Detect Test button. Look for the indicators here. That is good. Back up. We'll start the APU fuel flow. Change over to status page. Make sure that the APU door is open and the self-diagnostic is complete. And then do APU start. Alright. With the APU started, you can see that the other screens come alive and we've got power to the aircraft. We'll get IRS dials 1 and 2 to nav. Head up to the overhead, get our nav and our logo lights on. Next we'll check the hydraulics by turning switches 1, 3, and 4 to the on position. We'll head down to the hydraulics page. Press hydraulic. And verify on the ECAS that we've got pressure flowing. That looks good. Now we'll turn all of the switches down to the auto position. Back to the hydraulics page. And you can see that we've got pressure flowing through the center pump. That looks good. So now we'll go and turn the second switch back to off. Next we'll go up and get our air conditioning pack 1, pack 2 on, our cargo air conditioning and recirc fan on. We'll turn on the window heat. That looks good. No smoking in passenger light, and arm the emergency lights. Next we'll check our anti-skid warning. Then we'll check our gear bay overheat warnings. We'll flip on the lamps test to make sure everything is illuminated. We'll get the thrust reversers armed. Head to the RTU and do the TCAS test. While that's getting set up, we'll put the parking brake back on. We'll turn on the pitch trim stabilizers and the yaw dampers. Next we can initialize our CDU, so we're going to head up to it and do our departure airport. Then head to the second page, snag the GPS coordinates, copy them to the scratch board, and paste them to position in it. Now before we proceed, we're going to need to get our clearance. Palm Springs clearance Delta 3556, IFR to Salt Lake City, ready to copy, with information India. Cleared to Salt Lake City via the Cathedral 1 departure, then as filed. Climb and maintain 8,000, expect flight level 340, 10 minutes after departure. Departure 126.7, squawk 3414, Delta 3556. Alright, while we get that entered into the CDU, I'll take you through the brief in Navigraph. So we have a 486 nautical mile flight departing from Palm Springs International to Salt Lake City. You can see that we've got a bit of a loop here, which is the Cathedral 1 departure. Last flight we departed from runway 13 left. This time we're departing from runway 31 left, which means we've got a slightly different departure. We're going to climb heading 310 on departure, which is runway heading until we cross Palm Springs radial 268. Then we're going to turn right and fly direct to the VOR. Then it's the same as the last flight. We're going to follow the 104 radial to MRED at 10 DME, then do a 180, fly direct to Palm Springs, and then from there head to our departure. From Palm Springs, we're flying direct Hector VOR. And then from Hector, we're going to get on the J107 jetway. From Hector, we'll stay on J107 airway. Now, J107 does have a turn at Boulder City VOR. You can see the turn right here. But we're flying the airway, regardless of which turns it makes. So we'll stay on J107 until we get to Milford VOR. Let me zoom out a little bit here until we can find it. Milford is right up here. And that will be our transition for our star. So we'll bring up the star and overlay it. It's the Jammin 5 star, cool name. Now, as I was recording this, in hindsight, I realized I made an error. The Jammin 5 star is specifically for runway 16 right, which you can see up here in the header. I ended up flying to 16 left, so I flew the wrong star. The star that I should have used is Delta 5. Now when I bring up Delta 5, it's essentially the same approach, however it's going to connect us with runway 16 left instead of 16 right. Either way, it looks sort of like flying a left downwind and then getting turned around for the ILS. The ILS itself is pretty straightforward and has us intercepting the glide scope at 6,000 at Yip waypoint. When we arrive, we'll be taxiing to Terminal 2 Concourse C, so we'll expect to do a right turn somewhere around Hotel 5 and take Hotel to get to our gate. Delta planes should be everywhere here, so we'll have a lot of company. Here at Palm Springs, we have a short taxi to 31 left, so we're going to expect a Bravo Whiskey Alpha taxi routing. Our passengers are aboard, so let's get everything all closed up and get ready for pushback.
Captain, the cabin is secure. All passengers are aboard.
Head up to the overhead, and we'll get the left-right boost pumps on, the beacon on, and the hydraulic pump switch 2 on. Okay, we've started our pushback, so we'll start the timer to record engine start. Head overhead and start engine number 2. There we go, helps to have the parking brake off for pushback. So we're going to monitor N2 until it gets to 20%, and once it does, we'll flip the red lever down on the second throttle and move it up to idle. Pushback is complete, so we'll get our parking brake set. Head back up to the overhead and repeat the process for the left engine. The safety announcement you hear in the background is part of the Aerosoft CRJ, so it's a nice touch.
If there is smoke in the cabin during the evacuation of the aircraft, the walkway emergency lights will display to the exits, which are located here and here. In case of an extreme emergency landing, you will be instructed to get into the brace position, which is
We'll get our nose wheel steering arm. We're going to need that to be able to steer when we're taxiing. And it's time to get the recog light on, which is the taxi light. Okay, we'll pull up Navigraph and see where we're at the airport. Palm Springs ground, Delta 3556, taxi with India. Taxi and hold short, runway 31 left via Bravo Whiskey Alpha, Delta 3556. This is Axonos KPSP Palm Springs International, which I did a review of in my last video. And on the right here, you can see AIG Traffic supplying our real-life liveries, which looks fantastic.
563, climb and maintain 15,000. Climb 15,000.
We're listening to liveatc.net for ATC, and we're running with real weather in real time, which means we've got some clouds and a pretty bumpy, windy departure with a snowy arrival at Salt Lake City. We'll get the cross-flow into manual and turn on all of our lights. Palm Springs Tower, Delta 3556, holding short, runway 31 left. Cleared for departure, runway 31 left, Delta 3556.
Bravo Lima, contact Los Angeles, Center 12815. 5695, fly heading 1900. For 0 Tango November, you're 5 miles from Oak, fly heading 270, maintain 4,000.
Get ourselves lined up and get ourselves clear of the displaced threshold here before we start to accelerate. We've got the numbers up ahead. That looks good.
GPS Bravo.
Roger, cleared for the VOR GPS Bravo. 4,000 till established. 0 Tango November. Afternoon, SoCal departure, Skywest 4018, 2.5, coming 8,000, Cathedral departure.
And rotate.
4018 SoCal departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 15,000.
Positive rate, gear up.
15,000, Skywest 4018.
That was 4018, leaving 5,000, proceed direct.
In the live ATC, I could hear problems with the weather and lots of turbulence and planes getting bumped around, so I'm curious what our experience will be here with the in-game weather.
95, you're going to maintain 6,000. Expect,
Okay, we're crossing our radio, so we're going to make our first turn.
Come up for Van Nuys, you are released between 18 and 21, and time now 12.
November 0 Tango November, contact Palm Springs Star 197. Skywest 5695.
695. So 0 Tango 15, 0 Tango November.
Cross flow back to manual, and thrust reversers disarmed.
1821.
Okay, we're in the soup for a bit here, but I think we're going to break through and see some blue skies.
1723, push and start from J85.
There they are.
With 1723, push back your discretion, information Charlie turns. Get Charlie, push our discretion, 1722.
We just overflew the VOR, so we're heading to MRUD now. We're looking good. Let's sit back and enjoy that awesome flight simulator scenery. say is, wow, those clouds and the snow on the ground coming into Salt Lake City, that just looked fantastic. The airport here is alive with AAG traffic. Check out the TBM, Bajaing it across the snow behind me. Pretty cool. What I learned from this flight is to always read the details in your plates because you might choose the wrong star or SID. So if you enjoy content like this, click that like button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks as always for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.